Hello and welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast, where we inspire fathers to build the blueprint for the next generation. We are the Thomas Brothers. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jared. And today's episode, we're talking about something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and it is about living life in the present. And there's there's so much to this about living a full life and enjoying the moments that you have every single day. Whether they say the future is a gift, or they say the moment. The right now is a gift, and that's why they call it the present, right?
There you go.
So they say the only They also say that the only reality that actually exists is the current moment. Future doesn't exist. Past is gone. It's done. But right now is the only thing that actually exists. So there's something to that, and I kind of walked through some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. And especially at this stage of my life, where I have young kids and I'm pretty healthy, and just thinking about, 20 years from now, or if I look back, what am I going to think? So some of these things we're going to dive into and talk about, and it's going to be a good conversation. I would say a thoughtful conversation. Most of our podcasts are very thoughtful, but this one will definitely, hopefully, keep you thinking throughout the week, well after we've signed off.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day.
You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
No retreat, no surrender.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
What we do in life, that goes in eternity.
So this one, I kind of titled this episode Carpe Diem. Seize the carp.
Carpe the diem.
If you will, for those of you who don't know what Carpe Diem means, it actually means to seize the day. Or a more literal translation is it's kind of like actually a horticulture kind of term people have said that literally means to pluck the day as it is ripe, like a ripe fruit, plucking it and just taking it when it's ready. So essentially what that means is to enjoy the moment. And this has often been related to another Latin phrase called Memento Mori, which is remember you are mortal, and that everything will pass away, and that the clock is ticking. And so I think both of those kind of together, that realizing that it encourages you to realize that right now is the time that you have, and you need to be mindful of your mortality, and you need to make the most of it. At least that's how I interpret Carpe Diem and Memento Mori. How do you interpret it, Ethan?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And that was one thing that I had kind of been on the tip of my tongue or my mind as I was preparing for this, and just thinking, living in the moment, enjoying the now, and how that kind of relates to the future. You kind of said that now is a gift because they call it the present, and it's kind of interesting because we're every single second that passes is there's never really I guess there's never really a now, because as soon as we say now it's in the past, right? Right. So, I had put together, quite a few things about, kids and kind of how we can potentially live in the now. What are some of the benefits of living in the now? And I think I struggle with this one sometimes because, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is it bad to focus too much on the future, or is it bad to focus on the future?
Yeah.
And I struggle with this one a little bit too, especially with finances and stuff like that. Like I'm constantly worrying about tomorrow or 20 years from now, 40 years from now. And it's just kind of interesting, the dynamic. There's some things that I'm kind of like in the moment, and there's other things where I feel like I have more of a future view of.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I thought was really interesting is it was talking about, I had read a quote. This is not my quote that I wanted to share, but one of the quotes that I had read was about opportunity. And it was like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it said something about how opportunity um, is a gift of the present, and how, opportunity is not something that, potentially is going to be in the future or whatever else, or in the past. If an opportunity is in the past, it's gone. If an opportunity is in the future, then you can't rely on it because it could change. But an opportunity is something that is in the present right now. And I thought that was kind of cool. It kind of made me think of how do I think of opportunities, right? And do I carpe diem whenever an opportunity presents itself, whatever that opportunity might be, whether it's playing with my kids, or building memories, or investing in something, or you know going and doing a Spartan race because somebody asked me, and I want to get better at my health, and so I say yes, because I know it'll push me to be better.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just a couple little teasers of some things that I had thought about.
Yeah, I one of the things that I kind of thought about was there's a couple different when I think about enjoying the future, there are a couple different cognitive biases or fallacies that come to my mind. Or even they're called sometimes cognitive distortions. And so I had three that I wanted to talk about that would love to hear your thoughts on these as well. The first one is the sunk cost fallacy. Are you familiar with the sunk cost fallacy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just kind of like, oh, well, I've already, bought the ticket, so I might as well go. Or I guess it's like a sunk cost, something that you can't get back, that like you're like, oh, I already invested in that, so I might as well just keep going or something.
Yeah. So even though the evidence has shows that you maybe shouldn't keep going, right? So it's kind of said more technically, it is the tendency to follow through on something that we've already invested heavily in. It could be time, money, effort, emotional energy, actual like physical energy, or what have you. Even when giving up is clearly a better idea. So we're all likely to continue in an endeavor if we have already invested in it, right? Monetarily, nobody wants to waste their time, nobody wants to waste their efforts, and so that often will mean that we go against evidence that shows it's no longer in our best interest, or is the best decision to continue forward. But we're like, oh man, we spent so much time on this. You just got to keep marching forward. So sometimes because of that, the human mind will like obscure rational thought because there's such an emotional attachment to the sunk cost of that. I do this a lot of times when I'm at restaurants. If I order something and it's like horrible, like I'm just like, well, I already paid for it. Might as well just eat it,
Yeah.
And so I was trying to not do that so much, but especially like, oh, well, it's just whatever. I've already spent the money, so, and I'm hungry, so I'll just eat it. I think some of this comes from like a mentality of like, don't waste anything, finish your plate. I think that sometimes that causes that. But I think one of the clearest examples of the sunk cost fallacy is these folks who go to Mount Everest, right? And they're waiting in line 300 yards from the top of Mount Everest, and their oxygen tanks are dangerously low, and they spent $100,000 to get there, and they've climbed all the way up to the top, and they're 300 yards from the summit, and they could see a storm rolling in, about to roll in the next hour, and they're like, man, what should I do? That sunk cost, you're saying, well, I've spent so much just to get here, but to continue forward, you could die, and many people do die. So that's a clear example of when like continuing forward is not always in your best interest. So this happens all the time in our lives. Holding on to a bad investment, staying in a bad job, staying in a bad marriage or relationship. Sometimes, they're like, oh, people always wonder, oh, why did that woman stay with that man? He was beating her, and he was all this kind of stuff. And people ask those questions often when women are abused. And you have to think about it. There's so much more to it. One, maybe she doesn't have any ability to make any money or means out if she were to leave him. Two, maybe if she were to leave him, he would commit more violence. And so sometimes there's this rationalization that happens. She's like, well, we've come so far, and he doesn't beat me every day now. It's just once a week. And so it's like, I think that can sometimes be a sunk cost fallacy. Like, I've put so much energy into this, and I've tried so hard, and I just keep going, and it'll work out. But it's like, it's not working out, So anyway, I think that is a cool example. And one of the things that I think that is very clear is like gambling, right?
Yeah. I was going to mention that, yeah.
A gambler just keeps going and going. It's like, okay, at some point, it's like, I need to stop. I need to step away. If I put in a single dollar more in, the risk of that is just going to be too high. When I think about this, I actually think about your experience, Ethan, with dental school. I know you've talked about that previously on the podcast. You've talked about that as a learning from a failure or a trial. But in many ways, I think of your experience in doing that as a sunk cost fallacy, as you realizing that the sunk cost, you realizing that you were in that type of a situation. And instead of having the sunk cost fallacy and continuing forward with something that was, you were at the precipice where you had done these tests, and it was just roadblock after roadblock. And if you had continued forward, this, thinking about all the energy you had put into it, it could have been extreme. The risks would have been way too high for your family, as a provider, even for your own mental health. And so, like, I feel like you in that moment realizing, hey, I've tried to go to this road of dental school. I've got a small family here. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to make a living. I'm trying to maintain relationships. And even though I've sunk so much into this, like 2 years basically of your life, or a year and a half of your life.
It was like 3 years.
Or 3 years.
It was like 2.5, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big chunk, and you worked freaking hard for that, but you were able to see, like, hey, if I continue down this path, I'm going to be on the top of Mount Everest with no oxygen, and then it won't matter at all.
I won't be able to come back down.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my thought.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I look at that, and there was a thought there, when I kind of went through, second rounds of, interviews, and I got, interviewed at school, and was like, oh, well, I didn't get in this year, but maybe one more year, and you only apply once a year, and then kind of the summer time frame. And yeah, I mean, it got to the point where it was like I had to make a decision of, I've invested all this time, I've invested all this money and all this, everything else into it. But it just didn't make sense. And, I just kind of threw my hands up and chalked it up to a great life experience, and then moved on to bigger and better things.
You didn't throw your hands up, but you said the cost to continue this is too high, and you were able to see.
Yeah, threw my hands up. I mean, I didn't throw them. I fought through it to where I was, and then at the end, I was just kind of like,
I think that it's easy to see that as giving up. I think it's very easy to see that, but it truly, I think it is a fallacy to see it that way. Just like say, oh, you got 200 yards from the summit of Everest and you just stopped. What an idiot! What an idiot! It's like, yeah, but I'm alive. Yeah. So who's the idiot?
Kind of like cashing in your chips while you can.
Yeah. It's like I've made a decision where it was no longer in my best interest to continue forward. The risk was far too high, and up to that point, the risk was different. and it was far too high to continue. And so that's one of the things I think about with sunk cost fallacy, and I think of that example that you shared. Another fallacy is called the. Anything else you want to share on that one?
No, it's good.
Okay. Another fallacy is called the arrival fallacy. You ever heard this one?
Mm-mm.
You ever see the movie Arrival?
Yeah, the aliens come and they like in that ship and they like write with like the ink or whatever.
Yeah. So this one's that like when the aliens arrive, are they going to be like, we have this fallacy to think that they're going to be peaceful, but in reality, they're not going to be peaceful. I'm just kidding. That has nothing to do with this. No, the arrival fallacy was coined by Dr. Ben Shahar, and that it is the illusion of reaching a destination or a goal will finally make you happy. So it's just like, oh, when I finally get that
new job,
that
promotion,
then I'm gonna be happy. Or that, and I get that new promotion, then I'm gonna be super happy. Or when my kids are finally out of diapers, then it's gonna be easy and I'll be happy. Or whenever I go on vacation or whatever. There's so many things. Or when you get that degree, or when you get married. See, one of the things for me, I feel like this is in my life, in some of the teachings that I feel like this one, for me personally, it rings really true, because I felt like a lot of my younger years were really, in many ways, it was just like I was following a script. And so I was kind of told all the things that I needed to do. You gotta, you gotta graduate high school. And then I went, I went on my trip, my mission trip. And then I came home and I needed to, first of all, I was told that I needed to get married right away. So I got married right away. And then I needed to get a degree. And I got that. And then I needed to get a job. And I got that. And then I needed to get a house. And I got that. And I needed to get kids. And I got that. So I did those things as fast as I possibly could, because I'm an achiever, right? It was almost like I felt like, oh, when I get there, when I get to that point, then I'll be set, and then I'll be taken seriously. Then I'll be like, then I'll feel like I'm accomplished. And I feel like, in many ways, I feel like that was a disservice. And maybe that was just the way that I interpreted it. But I felt like I wish I had taken more time to enjoy the different stages of life that I was in, instead of rushing to try and arrive at this next level or whatever that next thing is. Even now, I'm thinking, sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, oh, when the kids are in high school, then this, or when they're out of the house, then we can do this, or when I retire. And I really catch myself thinking, like, when I retire, it's like, are you serious? Like, am I seriously saying that? When I retire, I will do X, Y, Z, or I will be this or that happy. Or that's like, I'm going to be an old man. If I can't be happy now, then I got a serious problem. And so that's something, this one for me is really about living in the moment and saying, is this like being happy along with the journey? So one of the things that Dr. Ben argues is that happiness is achieved through the effort in life and not in the achievement of the goal. So he talks about don't make unrealistic expectations about how an achievement will make you feel. That could emotionally backfire on you. It's like, you ever see that movie? What's that movie with Will Smith, and he like gets that job? And he's like a real
Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great movie. I think it's a great movie. He works hard. He gets that job right. And then it's just like, oh, total bliss. Kind of at the end of the movie. It's not Hollywoodized. But in reality, sometimes, he's still a single dad. Even if he gets that job, he's still got to try to figure out what to do, where to live. He's working long hours, and now he can't spend time with his son. So it's just like the happiness oftentimes is just in the journey, and it's not in this achievement. So stop waiting for that next achievement. Stop wishing your life away, or saying, I'll be happy when, in anticipation for a goal or whatever. And so I think that that is a really important one. Ethan, do you have any thoughts on that arrival fallacy?
Yeah, this one kind of hits home with me from the kid's perspective. Because a lot of times, yeah, it's like, oh man, whenever the kid starts walking, I won't have to carry him around anymore. Or, oh, finally, whenever we get out of diapers, then finally we'll be able to rest. Or, whenever the kids do this or whenever they do that, I'm finally going to be able to have fun at the beach whenever my kid stops putting sand in their mouth. Or, kamikaze towards the ocean. It's just like,
Yeah.
But if you live your life like that, then it's never ending.
Yep.
Because now it's going to be, oh, my kid's not putting sand in their mouth anymore, but now they're running towards the ocean. And then now it's not they're not running towards the ocean, but they're
so not too far.
Not putting their life jacket on. So not too far. And then it'll be, whenever they get older, now they don't even want to hang out with you, or they don't even want to, it's like and so I don't know. Yeah, if you just kind of wish your life away, don't let kind of wants right now, or don't let your uncomfortable state right now dictate I guess the future.
Yeah.
Or drive you towards something, because there's always going to be something else. There's always going to be a different challenge. There's always going to be, if it's not one thing, another. And then you get some people that are the you just waiters. Those people bother me so much. And it's like, oh, I have kids, my oldest just turned 10. Like, oh, you just wait until he's a teenager. And then it's just like, okay. And it's like, oh, you just wait until he starts dating. It's like, okay. It's like, you just wait until he gets married. You just wait. It's like, there's always someone that's like further along in the path, and they just say, you just wait. And it's like, well, I freaking hate that. Like, what is this going to be worse some other time? But there's just always going to be something. There's always going to be something that makes us uncomfortable. And that's not a bad thing. That's where people grow. And I think if you can learn to enjoy that place, and find beauty in it, I don't particularly like changing diapers.
But I like cute babies.
But I like a lot of the other stuff that comes along with babies. And we're just finishing potty training our last one. I haven't changed at least a poopy diaper in 6 months, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But then there's other things where there's that I miss about those stages.
Yeah.
And so you can't just focus on one thing. You got to focus on the whole thing. The arrival is like, oh, when this comes, it'll be better. But then maybe that one thing might be easier or better, but there's other things that get lost along the way.
Yeah.
That you will miss.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people, I think especially around like retirement, have this as well. Like they really think like, oh, when I retire, it's just gonna be so great, and I'm just gonna be so happy. And it's interesting. I started a new job recently, and before I started, there was a lady that retired there, probably a month or so before I started, and she was an old lady, director of HR, and so I was, first about 3 or 4 weeks in. The new director of HR went out with her to lunch, and so this lady who had retired came by the office, and it was kind of a weird interaction. Like we had a big team meeting that she used to be part of. So she came into the first part of the meeting. She just came to say hi to everybody, and I didn't know this lady. I didn't have anything to say to this lady. I didn't even really bother to introduce myself because she didn't even work there, right? She was just the old director of HR, and it was a weird interaction because she was like, "Oh, you guys are all here, and I am retired," and everybody in the room was like, "Oh, you're just here to gloat or whatever," and she's like, "My husband calls me Betty Crocker now because I make a lot of snacks and a lot of food," and she was like oddly lingering a little bit too long.
Like she was like, "Can I come back?"
Yeah, so I'm like, you know what? I bet she's retired, so she kind of socially is like, okay, people envy me because I'm retired. But I bet I think that when you retire, you're kind of saying, okay, my contribution to, in some people's mind, they're saying, oh, my contribution to the world is now ended. And so I think that in some ways she was almost like nostalgic or wanting to come back to work to have that purpose again. And so sometimes, if you're not happy before you're in retirement, you ain't going to be happy after you retire. I mean, barring you're working in like a coal mine or something, so, but anyway,
shop.
yeah, exactly. So that's the arrival fallacy. Now, there's one that's kind of tangential to that. It's something called should statement.
Tangential, that's a nice word.
Yeah, should statements. So this is a form of cognitive distortion is what they call this. Cognitive distortion. That's what my wife feels after a day of all these boys being home from summer from school. They have to cognitively adjust her mind.
More like cognitive destruction.
Yeah, that's exactly. So this one is a faulty pattern of thinking where consistent, unhelpful, unrealistic, and irrational thoughts or errors in our thinking don't match up with the reality of what is happening. So that's a mouthful, but essentially you're setting expectations that might not take into account the particular circumstances that you're in. So, and it's usually created with the should statement. Oh, I should, go talk to my neighbors, or I should go, I should go help that person, or I should. You're at work, Ethan. You talked about you're at work, and sometimes you're like, oh, I should go talk to people right now.
I should go network.
I should go. So, I think in some ways, you, in your own mind, you are saying, I want to be this type of person. And so I'm going to do these types of things. But this is a little bit beyond that, where you're setting unrealistic expectations. And it creates a situation to where you are always anxious, leads to anger, anxiety. Oh, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. It's like this future thing that it's just like this part of you that's always nagging you to do something.
Like when you're sitting on vacation, it's like, oh, I should be up doing something, or I'm on vacation, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that.
Yeah.
It's like, got no chill.
Yeah. It's similar to a kind of like another cognitive distortion that's called an all or nothing mindset or thinking, so black or white. It's like, if I should do this, or I'm a failure. And so that's kind of that black and white thinking that I was talking about, that takes you out of the moment and doesn't allow you to live fully. If you're always anxious and thinking, oh, I should do this, if you're stacked with way too many things to do, and the expectation is that you have to do all these things, maybe you have too many unrealistic expectations of yourself. In my life, I have felt like sometimes I feel like I'm trying to get away from this, but I feel like there's been so many expectations of things that I should be doing. Or else I wasn't a good dad, or I wasn't a good leader in my home, or I wasn't a good whatever else. And these expectations, I felt at times that was so much that there was no way that I could even accomplish any of all that. So it ended up where I just felt bad about my actions, and I felt bad for myself, and I felt like a failure because I wasn't doing all the things that was expected of me. So if you're feeling like that, take a look at, well, why am I feeling like that? What is behind that should, and where does that come from, and is that realistic for me to be asking that of myself right now? And so anyway, I thought that was a really good one. I think that these three specifically ones, also that all or nothing mentality I talked about, that goes in with the shoulds, but it's also kind of like, I was talking about just life with Shannon the other day, and I was like, sometimes people have this thing where like they're scared to start something, and try something out because they don't want to be perceived as giving something up or quitting something. There's nothing worse than a quitter. People say that, and it's like, okay, what if you just try something because you want to have an experience in your life, and you don't like it, then you stop. Like, since when is that like a bad thing? I think that that mindset of like, oh, you're a quitter is such like a juvenile viewpoint to say to someone when it's like, well, people
I didn't like it.
People try different things. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's like, okay, I'll go try this, or I'll try this new sport or this new thing or this new hobby, and if I don't like it, I'll bail on it. If I do like it, then guess what? I've explored something. That's what our podcast is about, is exploration, right? I've explored something new, and I've discovered something that I've liked. And so those are the ones I wanted to talk about, and those different fallacies. So the arrival fallacy, the sunk cost fallacy, the shoulds, and then the all or nothing. I think if we can resolve many of those, then we can and keep those in mind when we're thinking about the future or thinking about today or thinking about the past. I think it will ground us in the present. And I think just to round that out, I think in many ways, there's a song about this, about when people think about their good old days, and the good old days are now. I think about that. I think that it's such like a important time of life right now, where my kids are young, I'm young and healthy, and it's just I just wake up and like, hey, what do I want for my life? I want what I have right now because it's going really well. And I think that not to say that challenges aren't going to come. I expect those to come, but it's important to live and soak up these days. And I don't want to look back and say, oh man, I wish I would have just enjoyed it more, instead of just looking forward to what was to come or the end of that period. I think that sometimes when I look back at my time in Mexico on my mission trip, I shoulded myself the entire. I should. You ever seen that commercial? I just shipped my pants. I shoulded myself that whole time, and I didn't really enjoy myself hardly at all that whole time because I was so hard on myself about like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be doing this. I didn't take time to just enjoy. I was like, oh, I've got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I was looking forward to that next change, and then I was looking forward to the end where I could come home, and then I didn't really get a chance. I mean, there was like one place where I kind of was able to open my eyes a little bit and say, hey, this is actually a really beautiful place, and I want to explore this place a little bit. And so I wish I'd done that more and just slowed down a little bit and lived a little bit more in the moment there.
Yeah. Well, I think you are a very driven person. And so I think if you're not like marching towards something, I feel like sometimes you feel like, I'm failing or I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I completely understand that. I remember when I was on my mission, there were a couple places too. I kind of felt like I was able to slow down, and really kind of enjoy, just the experience.
That's good.
Which I think maybe that kind of, I don't know, feeds into the experience as a whole. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of round this out with was when it comes to, and this is maybe more granular than kind of the fallacies you were talking about, but living in the moment or living in the present, right? When it comes to communication, and we've talked about this before, but when it comes to like interacting with other people, there are so many distractions and things that go on, that I think when you're talking with someone, I'm specifically thinking about like my wife, right? Or my kids. When I am engaging with someone or I'm speaking with someone or they're trying to talk to me, right? Am I trying to live like, 4 presents at a time? Am I trying to pay attention to this thing and then I'm watching my phone and then my kid's talking to me and then this other thing? Like living in the moment or being in the moment, it's easy to get distracted with everything that's going around, everything that we have in our lives, or maybe worry or anxiety or whatever else it might be. I think being present in a conversation um, leads to, we've talked about active listening before, and just more meaningful interactions and strengthening of relationships. I think it can help with kind of empathy and understanding, and like, really, when someone is there telling you something, maybe it's something that's near and dear to them or close to their heart, or they're struggling with something, and you're really in the moment with them. I think that's powerful. And so, kind of, I know it's kind of a different take on the living in the present or living in the moment, but that was something that really kind of
That's
jumped
right.
out
Yeah.
out at me.
Yeah.
And there, I kind of dove in a little bit too on, what are some, is it bad to be too focused on the future?
You mean the
And
present?
some, no, like, is it bad to focus too much on the future and not enough on the present? I guess
Okay. Okay.
is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So if you focus too much on the future, right, that can lead to increased just stress and anxiety in general, right? Like you were saying, if you should yourself to death, well, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be doing this, then it's just, you just increasing, you just become overwhelmed of all the shoulds that you should be doing. And that's just no way to live, right? You can neglect the present. A lot of times, if you're so focused on the future, then you miss those opportunities that I talked about earlier. Opportunities come up in the present. When an opportunity presents itself, it's right now. Um, and so you don't want to neglect the present because of, you're thinking too much of the future. And this kind of goes into my quote that I came up to.
Yeah.
But I think it focusing too much on the future can reduce happiness, kind of like what you said, the arrival thing. Oh, well, when this comes, I'll be happier. When that comes, I'll be happier. When that comes, I'll be happy. Um, it can cause health issues if you are just constantly looking to, you're not living in the now. And this can kind of go both ways, because sometimes you can, like, living in the now, you kind of think of like, oh, YOLO, right? You only live once. I have to, go crazy now. I got to eat all the sweets, and I got to get, just indulge, and I just got to just live in the moment, and all this different kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But I think if you completely disregard the future,
Yeah.
then you're just going to end up, if you're living in the now from meal to meal to meal to meal to meal, then you're just going to end up being, 600-pound, unhappy, unmobile person that's just miserable. And then you're like, how did I get here? Well, you got here because all you did was live in the now.
Yeah.
And you never told yourself no. And you never, I guess you never realized that what you were doing maybe is sunk costs. You need to turn the ship around. So
Yeah. With that, I think that there's a lot of situations where we say the future, like the future is actually guaranteed. Future
Yeah.
is not guaranteed, man. Not at all. And as I get kind of older, and I there's people that have been no one like really close to me has died, but I've known people that have just randomly died young. I knew a guy that back in Boise that he had like 5 kids, and he was in like I think he was in his lower 40s. He was really into dirt biking, and one time he was going dirt biking, and he just fell off a cliff and died. And it's like he had no future. He didn't know that. That last and there's another guy like my brother-in-law. He had a business partner, and they were setting up a business, and they were gonna quit their jobs and really go all in on this business. And then one day, my brother-in-law tried to call his buddy a couple times, and then he called us, and then his mom called him and said, "Hey, have you heard from, Hunter? I don't know where he is." And he's like, "I haven't heard from him. I texted him yesterday. He didn't answer. I thought he was busy." And his mom's like, "Something's wrong." She drove down to his place, like, I think she drove like 6 hours down to his house. She found him dead. He had a heart attack. He had a rare heart condition where he really like super low potassium levels, and he would die. And he died. And he was like in his 20s. He was like late 20s. So it's just like you're not guaranteed any time on this planet. And like, yes, it's important to think about your future, but what if you're like, man, when I retire, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so great. It's going to be awesome. And the day you retire, on your way home from work, you get hit by a car and you're quadriplegic the rest of your life. Or you just get diagnosed with cancer. Or, there's another gal that my wife knows, and her husband got like, he was just like went into the hospital and he had something on his arm, I think, and it was like, oh yeah, that's like stage 4 non-operable Hodgkin's lymphoma. Sorry, and he died like 4 months later. So it's like, dude, you got to live in the now. You've got to remember that you are mortal, and that this time will pass.
But the same thing to that is kind of going with like the, keeping up with your health in the now, right? Because I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to be able to
totally
run and jump and everything else. And so thinking towards the future of, I want to be able to. So what I'm going to do right now is going to prepare my body and my mind so that when that time comes, I can achieve my goals.
Well, I think it's like, I'm not necessarily, I agree with you, but maybe it's not so much advocating living like day to day. Because if I'm living in the moment, then I'm like, I want to do the most happiest thing that for my day, like right now. And that does not include, going to work today.
That's true.
Maybe it's not so much living in the exact moment. Maybe what I'm talking about more is like live in that month, live in that week, And so think about that. It's like, okay, well, I want to be healthy. I want to be able to do this stuff that I want to be able. Like this weekend, I'm doing a jiu-jitsu tournament. I want to be able to do that tournament. I got to be strong. I got to be healthy. I've got to do things, and so I'm looking forward to that. But I would say that's the moment. This week, this month, the next few months, like that. This is kind of
Could
the
be different stages of moments.
Yeah, thinking like, oh man, I can't wait for 5-6 years down the road when this or that happens, or when I do this, then I'm gonna have. It's just like a little bit different of a view. But yeah, I mean, you only have. So maybe the moment is more of a guideline than a hard and fast.
More of a guideline.
This nanosecond.
Yeah. Did you have a quote?
Yeah, I just had one. So this one, the author's unknown, but it said, "Don't let the sadness of your past and the fear of your future ruin the happiness of your present."
Yeah, nice. I like it. Definitely.
Sometimes
Go
ahead, sorry.
Learn from the past and hope for the future, but enjoy the present.
Yeah. Sometimes I have a tendency to like replay things in my mind from the past. In fact, I saw a TikTok meme the other day, and this guy was like, it was like this guy was in like his face was painted like a clown. He's like me at like 11 o'clock at night, laying in bed, remembering something I said like in high school. It's just like he's just beating himself about how horrible he found.
You shouldn't have said that.
I shouldn't have said that. So sometimes I do have a tendency to do that, just to like really analyze the past, or just like hyper focus on the future. So I've been trying to kick that habit a little bit and just live in the present.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the quote I actually had two quotes I thought were good. One is from Benjamin Franklin, good old Ben Frank, and it is, "One day is worth 2 tomorrows." Yeah. So that one was pretty good. And then another one, it said Muhammad Ali. I don't know. It sounds pretty common, but it says, "Don't count the days, make the days count." And so, I don't know. Those are two that I thought were pretty cool. Kind of hit me. One today is worth 2 tomorrows. So what am I doing? A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Yeah. Or didn't they ask Muhammad Ali, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't know. I don't start counting until it starts hurting.
I don't start counting until it starts hurting. It was it Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson? I don't know. One of the two.
So, what was it? That's kind of like what you said, where make it count. Don't worry about counting the days. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this has been a great episode. I think it's been thoughtful. It's been definitely interesting to talk through the importance of living in the now. But also, we talked a little bit about the future as well, and how the now can be. The now doesn't have to mean this 1 second. It could mean this week. It could mean this month. It could even mean this year, right? I think living in the now is I think boiled down to not being sad about the past and not being fearful of the future, like you said, Jared, but just enjoying the opportunities and the things you've been blessed with, and the things you've strived for and achieved up to this point in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I echo that, and just all the things we've said, and appreciate those who are listening to the podcast. And we invite you, like we always do, to apply these things in your life. Think about these things, ponder them. Maybe take a break from listening after this episode. Just don't go right to the next episode. Just take a pause and think about what we said.
No. Go to the next episode.
We gotta let this stuff sink in, man. This is heavy. This is a lot of stuff. So let it sink in. Think about your own thing, and then you can listen to the next episode when it comes. Well, they got a week before it comes out the next week, if you're following it along in real time. But with that, let's build our creed together.
All right, let's do it.